Hi, my name is Matthew Coufal, and I'm going to be discussing the significant factors that contributed to the Egyptian Arab Spring Revolution. My partner Ben Engfelt is going to be talking about how the revolution expanded and as well how it diminished. These revolutions occurred among people of the Arab world who were frustrated with the government and how rulers were affecting their rights in their countries themselves. Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali, the Tunisian president at the time, was overthrown during the Tunisian Arab Spring Revolution in January 2011. Now Ben Ali was an autocrat who ruled with absolute power and control. Hosni Mubarak, who was president of Egypt for 3 decades, was democratic. Like Ben Ali, Mubarak was becoming more and more of an autocrat, making reformations that hundreds of thousands of Egyptians did not approve of at all. He had raised prices, which obviously had increased the amount of poverty and unemployment in Egypt. Over almost the entire course of his reign, the minimum amount of income received hadn't fluctuated at all. It was economically unstable for copious Egyptians to try to thrive with such little financial capability. I think this mishap that Mubarak had created and the stimulative influence of the successful Tunisian revolution were definitely some of the key components that led to the actual revolution in Egypt itself. And it all began on January 25th, 2011, when thousands of Egyptians began protesting and demanding Mubarak's resignation. These protests last for 18 days, until, after 30 years of rule, Hosni Mubarak had finally resigned.
Hello, my name is Ben Engfelt, and I'm here to take you through a brief history of the Egyptian Arab Spring. It all started February 11th, 2011. After daily protests, President Mubarak handed over power of Egypt to Field Marshal Hassan Tantwani. About 850 people died in this conflict. The next day, the army promised a peaceful transition to democracy. However, they got rid of the constitution and the parliament. On March 19th, though, the Egyptians successfully approved a new constitution with about 77% of the people voting yes. Later in May, 15 people died and 200 people are injured as Muslims and Christians fought in the square in Cairo. In July, thousands of people start a Tahrir sit-in in which they criticize the military's lacking speed to reform. Later, hundreds of thousands of Islamists packed the Tahrir Square. It was the biggest gathering of people since Mubarak resigned. In August, though, Mubarak begins trial, along with his 2 sons and the former Interior Minister Habib al-Adli. Also, 6 police commanders were also on trial. In October, though, more people died. Conflicts in Cairo leave 25 people dead. Most of them were Coptic Christians. In November, there were week-long clashes between police and anti-military people. This conflict left 42 people dead. The next year, in January 2012, the U.S. Department sits down with Muslim Brotherhood party leaders trying to resolve the conflict. On May 23rd, this was a big step for Egypt. Egypt held its first free presidential election. Later in June, though, Mubarak was sent to life in prison and the Arab Spring finally ended. However, protesters were still angry because Mubarak said he would appeal. June 11th, Mubarak's health deteriorates. People in prison said he is defibrillated twice. However, on June 19th, Mubarak had a stroke and undergoes defibrillation in prison once again. He is then transferred to a military hospital. On June 24th, Muhammad Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood declared winner of the first Egyptian presidential election, and thus ended the Egyptian Arab Spring.